Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following this show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We opened the show with Beyond the Big Infinity by Jorito and Sagnewshreds from ocremix.org from the game Secret of Mana. And that actually comes from the album Secret of Mana, Residents of the Pure Land, released in 2017. That song is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of energy. It's got some 80s sound in there, and then that ripping guitar solo that comes in, courtesy of Sagnewshreds. I think with all the chippiness in there, you don't really expect that guitar to just tear it up, but it does. So Secret of Mana is a game I haven't played, but it's on my Super Nintendo Mini, so I need to do it. Every time I want to sit down and play it, I always realize it's like a 40-hour game, right? 30 hours plus anyway. There's something about me that stops with that commitment. Even though I like my JRPGs, I got to play at least the original Secret of Mana. If I found out the entire soundtrack of Secret of Mana sounded like that remix we just played, I'd go right in right now. I'd stop recording this right now and just start playing that to hear that whole soundtrack. So again, Beyond the Big Infinity by Jorito and Sagnewshreds from ocremix.org from the game Secret of Mana. Up next is a somber, thoughtful piece coming from Super Metroid. It's remixing that Brinstar Red Soil area sound from that Super Nintendo classic. This is coming from Platonist, who has a very strange, dark way of playing with chiptune. There is chiptune in there, but he just kind of crunches it up a bit. It comes from a much darker place than what we just heard in that Secret of Mana mix. While this track is a bit slower and a bit thoughtful, like the falling sand of the game, it also will pick up at a certain point in the song and have kind of a different time signature, and it becomes kind of a more of a galloping piece. So this is Drowning in Iron Oxide by Platonist from ocremix.org from the game Super Metroid. was Drowning in Iron Oxide by Platonist from ocremix.org from the game Super Metroid. And having just replayed Super Metroid fairly recently, the soundtrack itself just holds up perfectly. There's something about that Super Nintendo sound chip hooks into you. I mean, there's some bad Super Nintendo soundtracks out there, but a really good one, like the Super Metroid soundtrack, it's able to create this atmosphere that's like unmatched. Alright, the next track comes from a game that was only released in Japan, King Kong 2, Yomigaeru Densetsu, which was on the MSX, but only released in Japan. Konami never brought it out. What I like about this track is it's just so bombastic and so energy fueled. It creates a very cinematic piece out of this original source. So this is End of the Adventure by Commandcom from ocremix.org from the game King Kong 2, Yomigaeru Densetsu. That was End of the Adventure by Commandcom from ocremix.org from the game King Kong 2, Yomigaeru Densetsu. Yeah, part of me when I heard this track, I'm like, why didn't I ever play King Kong 2? Because it never came over here. And it was on the MSX. It would have had to be on the NES, and it would have had to be that my mom rented it. So the chances that that was all going to come together were very slim. Nice piano in there, really heavy drums, just a big adventurous piece, that track. Up next is a track from Street Fighter 2 from the Zangief theme. Zangief, the USSR. And as a kid, I didn't Zangief scared the crap out of me. He had all those like red lines along his arms and legs. I didn't know what they were. Like, I didn't know if they were muscles. I didn't know if they were veins. I didn't know if he was just covered in cuts and blood and he was just coming to beat the crap out of me. But Zangief scared me every time. This track comes in pretty heavy with the bass, but then it gets some really grungy, dirty electric guitar in there, playing around with this turntable sounds as well. So this is Red Cyclone by The Grammar Club from ocremix.org from Street Fighter II, The World Warrior. That was Red Cyclone by The Grammar Club from ocremix.org from the game Street Fighter II, The World Warrior. I think that's the first time we've featured a Zangief mix here, so that's exciting. As much as he scared me, his track always sounded good, because every track in Street Fighter II fit its character perfectly. It's such an amazing soundtrack. Okay, here's a fun piece. This is called Wizards in My Armor. It's coming from Wizards and Warriors, and it's a vocal piece. Fun lyrics in here, kind of exciting, very nerdy. If you had told me somebody had just made this song about their Dungeons and Dragons campaign, I would have believed you. And I think that's why I love it so much. There's some fun vocals in here. At one point, it does have a pretty fun electric guitar solo in there. A lot of electric guitars showing up today. This is Wizards in My Armor, Warrior in My Long Johns by Brothersynthe and Trenthian from ocremix.org from the game Wizards and Warriors. That was Wizards in My Armor, Warrior in My Long Johns. I think I just got that. Brothersynthe and Trenthian from OCRemix.org from the game Wizards and Warrior. And I think originally why I came to that sound is because the soundtrack was originally by David Wise, composer of many great tunes, Donkey Kong Country, Battletoads, and Wizards and Warriors. I like how that recorder sound is also blown out, like every recorder attempt. Here is a bluesy piece from the original Super Mario game, remixing the famous overworld background music from the first Mario game back on the NES in 1985. This, as I said, is a bluesy, jazzy piece. It's called Super Mario Blues, but it's much more of a jazz piece here. Koji Kondo's work usually, and Nintendo's in-house band, they usually just lend themselves to jazz music wonderfully. So this is Super Mario Blues by Neskvartetten from OCRemix.org from the game Super Mario Bros. was Super Mario Blues by Neskvartetten from ocremix.org from the game Super Mario Brothers. I just love how improv the whole thing sounds and how Smokey and Jazz Club that all fits. It really does create that atmosphere of just a jazz band up there on the stage, just strumming and jamming along. That's a really fun, and I mean, well done. Everything about that is just so technically impressive. Here comes a rippin' chiptune piece. This comes from TJH, the Guitar Hero. And it comes from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Red Rescue Team, which is the soundtrack of a game that I seem to love, but I haven't played those games. But every time I see a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon remix, I'm like, this is going to be good. This one falls right into that category. It's great. It has so much energy. It's kind of aggressive. It's got a lot of attitude at times, but that chippy synth sound is there to soften the edges a bit. But this isn't a mellow piece at all. This thing is just pure momentum. This is Times Like These by the Guitar Hero from ocremix.org from the game Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Red Rescue Team. That was Times Like These by TJH from ocremix.org from the game Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team, remixing the Great Canyon and Sky Tower themes there. I really like that kind of repeating beat that's playing underneath all the more aggressive instruments in the forefront. I feel like that beat could be done in a more mellow way as well, and I would probably love that as well. Just give me more. I guess I'm just gonna have to start listening to the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon soundtrack by itself. No remixes, because again, every time I hear something by it, I love it. Okay, this is one of my absolute favorite remixes from Overclocked Remix, and honestly, I think it's the first remix I ever listened to on the site, and the one that won me over. This is Death on the Snowfield by AmIEviL. It's remixing the Terra theme. It's just this sad, quiet piano piece that really has always created the atmosphere of falling snow on a battlefield. The textures that come in for that first minute are just so... I think that's it. It has that sound of snow crunching. And then that acoustic guitar that's playing, it adds kind of like an extra note or two, and it kind of becomes like the definitive version of the Terra theme for me. Like the definitive, as it becomes the source Terra theme, really. And so it's almost like Terra themes that I hear later on being remixed are remixing this song in a lot of ways. So this is Death on the Snowfield by AmIEviL from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VI. That was Death on the Snowfield by AmIEviL from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VI. I had gotten on the site, I had gotten on Overclocked Remix right after I had played Final Fantasy VI for the first time, and this track was just waiting for me to come and love it and fall in love with OCR and video game music remixes, video game music in a bigger way. I think Final Fantasy VI was one of the most important games musically for me. Like, I always enjoyed listening to Zelda music and Donkey Kong music in the game and liked listening to it on pause and everything. But Final Fantasy VI was like, oh, there's so much out there that I have to get to. Kind of a simple piece, but always one that I just go back to. Maybe one of my most played OCR tracks I have on my collection. Okay, so this game, Zone of Enders, the second runner, is on my list. I think I even have it on my Steam wish list right now, the remaster or remake, whatever they had just done recently to it. So I haven't played it, even though it's been on my radar. But Anti-Sin is remixing this one, and I'm a big fan of Anti-Sin's sound. Though this one is much more of a solemn piece than a lot of his other tracks have been. The ones that I really like, his Final Fantasy VII remix or his Parappa the Rapper remix. This one, those kind of have like kind of a trance sound. This one has an interesting rising and falling electronic sound happening, but it is much slower, and the vocals in here are also a lot more somber. The whole piece is just this somber electronic meditation, I guess. This is ADA by Anti-Sin from ocremix.org from the game Zone of the Enders, the second runner.
Message of the blowing wind, erasing memories, start all the witnesses of our existence change. It is what the world awaits. Could there be peace or war? The answer no one knows, trusting the break of dawn. Reaching out to catch the sun, to hold it in our hands, longing for something strong, to hide our weakness soon. The light may disappear, nothing is meant to last. Yeah, we believe a world searching for happiness.
That was ADA by Anti-Sin from OCRemix.org from the game Zone of the Enders, the second runner. And yeah, the lyrics themselves, I mean, they're very somber. Message of the blowing wind, erasing memories, stars are the witnesses of our existence. There's poetry in there, but there's also that kind of somber, we're realizing the stars are witnessing us and we're just little momentary creatures in this world. And the stars are watching, probably not even intently. The next track comes from the Jurassic Park, the Super Nintendo version, which has the Mountain Ranges tune that comes from the Super Nintendo Jurassic Park game, and a little bit from the NES game. It's what I like, but I just wish I had liked that Bird's Eye Jurassic Park game more than I ever did. I gave it so many shots as a kid. I just wanted to love it so much, and it just was not great. This track, Before Time, is by Ryan Probst and also Danny Baranowsky. And Danny Baranowsky, responsible for the Super Meat Boy, the Binding of Isaac, the Crypt of the Necrodancer soundtracks. I mean, he's a force of nature in the video game world right now. This came out in 2004, so it's really cool to just hear him refining his style. And there's a lot of cool guitar work in this. I know this has been a guitar-heavy episode, but there's just so much cool guitar work out there in the video game remix world. The jungle beat in here is very cool, kind of sets the tone, but then the electric guitar comes in, really kind of steals the show. So this is an interesting piece. This is Before Time by Danny Baranowsky and Ryan Probst from OCRemix.org from the game Jurassic Park. That was Before Time by Danny Baranowsky and Ryan Probst from OCRemix.org from the game Jurassic Park, the Super Nintendo one. The Super Nintendo game also had those first-person-ish perspective where you think maybe they were they were chasing the Doom train, where you go in a building as kind of first person and you see Dilophosauruses and Velociraptors coming at you. But when you go back to it now, it's not as impressive. It would be cool if that game was all that, but it wasn't. Nor was it all that in a bag of chips. Anyway, that was the last track of the show. So thank you for listening to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I have been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.